district court rulings about all the fired probationary workers use the same language here just now that was in the statement about fighting back against that ruling. Do you mean appealing or something else? And does the administration plan to comply with those orders in the meantime?
Fighting back by appealing, fighting back by using the full weight of the White House counsel's office and our lawyers at the federal government who believe that this injunction is entirely unconstitutional. And it is, for anybody who has a basic understanding of the law. You cannot have a low-level district court judge filing an injunction to usurp the executive authority of the President of the United States. That is completely absurd. And as the executive of the executive branch, the President has the ability to fire or hire. And you have these lower-level judges who are trying to block this President's agenda. It's very clear. And as I just cited, I was appalled by the statistic when I saw it this morning. In 1 month, in February, there have been 15 injunctions of this administration in our agenda. In 3 years under the Biden administration, there were 14 injunctions. So it's very clear that there are judicial activists throughout our judicial branch who are trying to block this president's executive authority. We are going to fight back. And as anyone who saw President Trump and his legal team fighting back, they know how to do it. He was indicted nearly 200 times, and he's in the Oval Office now because all of the indictments, all of these injunctions have always been unconstitutional and unfair. They are led by partisan activists who are trying to usurp the will of this president, and we're not going to stand for it.
They all have to go back and learn civics because that is not right. That's White House press secretary and apparently amateur constitutional lawyer Karoline Leavitt reacting to the news that 2 separate federal judges ruled this week that the Trump administration illegally fired tens of thousands of federal workers across several agencies and that they must be reinstated. One of the lawsuits came from a coalition of 20 state attorneys general from across the country. I repeat, these were state attorneys general. So when Republicans tell you that they want to give the power back to the people, well, this is what it looks like.
You keep talking about the judge's written order, which hit the docket Saturday night at about 7:26 p.m., but he issued a verbal order before that at about 6:45 and 6:48 p.m. based on the court hearing, a verbal order from the bench. Does the White House feel the need to comply with a verbal order from this judge?
Again, as I said, all of the planes subject to the written order of this judge departed U.S. soil, U.S. territory before the judge's written order.
But what about the verbal order, which of course carries the same legal weight as a written order, and said for the planes to turn around if they were
Well, there's actually questions about whether a verbal order carries the same weight as a legal order, as a written order, and our lawyers are determined to ask and answer those questions in court. Sean.
Hey, so on Friday, the president suggested at length that it should be illegal to criticize judges, but he has repeatedly criticized judges who rule against him, and Elon Musk is calling for impeachment of judges who have opposed the administration. So how are those two things not in conflict?
I have not heard the president talk about impeaching judges. I know you mentioned Mr. Musk's tweet, but I have not heard the president of the United States ask that. Mary.
Hey, thanks, Caroline. I wanted to ask about this video I saw this morning set to the tune of, I believe, Closing Time about deportations of illegal migrants. What's the strategy behind the White House's videos they've been putting out on this, and can you kind of talk us through the thinking on these videos?
Sure. I think the White House and our entire government clearly is leaning into the message of this president. And we are unafraid to double down and to take responsibility and ownership of the serious decisions that are being made. The president was elected with an overwhelming mandate to launch the largest mass deportation campaign in American history, and that's exactly what he is doing. And to this very day, we are now, I think, 56 or 7 days into the administration by my count. The president still receives an overwhelming public support for the policies that he is enacting. So we are unafraid to message effectively what the president is doing on a daily basis to make our community safer. And the specific video you referenced, I think it sums up our immigration policy pretty well. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
You know, it really is incredibly concerning just how comfortable Republicans are with Donald Trump ignoring federal, state, and local judges. Like, sure, just go ahead and let the man be king. You know, why not?
Do you plan to comply with the judge's order regarding rehiring the federal workers?
What are you talking about?
The Clinton appointee judge that ruled that the federal government has to rehire the fired federal workers. Do you plan to comply with that?
Well, I think it's absolute. I have nothing to do with that other than I heard about the decision. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely. It's a judge that's putting himself in the position of the President of the United States, who was elected by close to 80 million votes. And you have that. You're having more and more of that. It's a very dangerous thing for our country. And I would suspect that we're going to have to get a decision from the Supreme Court. But that's a very dangerous decision for our country. And these are people, in many cases, they don't show up for work. Nobody even knows if they exist. And a judge wants us to pay them even if they don't know they exist. If they exist. And I don't think that's going to be happening, but we'll have to see. I don't know. You have to speak to the lawyers about that.
We made a promise to the American people. The President Trump has made a promise to the American people. We're going to make this country safe again. I wake up every morning loving my job because I work for the greatest president in the history of my life, and we're going to make this country safe again. I'm proud to be a part of this administration. We're not stopping. I don't care what the judges think. I don't care what the left thinks. We're coming.
Yeah. I just love seeing you going through these protesters just crunching on the apple as their liberal tears just flood the hallway. Tom Holman, thanks so much for joining the program.
Paula, wow, this is a very big deal.
This is a huge deal. Here you have Chief Justice John Roberts appearing to push back on statements President Trump made earlier today, suggesting that a judge, James Boasberg, who of course temporarily blocked deportations by the Trump administration, or at least tried to, should be impeached. And here the Chief Justice writes, "For more than 2 centuries, it has been established that impeachment is not an appropriate response to disagreement concerning a judicial decision. The normal appellate review process exists for that purpose."
This is more of your Trump derangement syndrome. This is more of these activist judges. So here you have a judge who is standing up for wasting taxpayer money. It is not the judge's money. It is not the court's money. This is money that hardworking taxpayers have earned and sent to Washington, D.C. And if they're going to decide they don't want to pay for Sesame Street in Iraq or DEI education in another country, or trans surgeries in another country. Martha, the American people have spoken. They gave Donald Trump a mandate on November 5th. He is carrying that out. He made promises. He is keeping those promises.
So much of Donald Trump's second term is going to be defined by him illegally going after agencies. And what is the court system really going to do about it? How hard is the Donald Trump administration really willing to fight against the federal, state, and local court systems who tell him, no, you can't just fire thousands of people here. No, you can't just shut this administration down. No, Elon Musk can't just arbitrarily go through all these federal agencies and gut them. As we talk about all the time, this agenda is nothing new for the Republican Party in terms of dismantling the administrative state. But one of the biggest issues with it, among, like getting rid of the Department of Education, under no circumstances is that a good idea, but it's how quickly they're doing it. I mean, this dude hasn't even been in office for 3 months yet, and already it's a complete disaster. Already much of his base is like, hey, I thought it was going to be them, not me. So, there's only so much sympathy you can have for somebody like that. But it really is amazing to watch these people just dismantle the administrative state so that nobody can stand up to Donald Trump. And how far are y'all going to go with this? Because clearly Donald Trump can't rule forever. He can't be in office forever. You got people like Steve Bannon casually talking about third terms. We're going to make it happen. We're going to figure it out. But the issue is, what if a Democrat gets in there? Do y'all want him to have that much power? Her to have that much power? I doubt it. But at the end of the day, these people are too short-sighted to think about any of these things.